And I'm going to give you a name now. You are the final authority, the master. The final authority, you are the master, like Srigan's master. So just be with this. You are the awakened one. You are the final authority. You are the master. Master, are you in? Are you awake? Don't be deceived by anyone, anytime, any place. So you all passed the koan that answered. Okay, let's take questions now. Let's do a dialogue. I can't see hands, so you just have to speak out.
We are masters, we know it.
Okay, let me ask you if that's true. You're the master, but do you know everything? Or is that an illusion? Do you know what I had for breakfast this morning? What? Food. You're quite some master now. No, is it true that you know everything? Or is that just an idea the self had that if it found the final authority, where did the self look for the final authority before? Outside. In where? In who? In what?
Condition, knowledge.
All of that. And people, right?
Yes.
Parents, teachers, gurus, masters, therapists, police officers, politicians. But who is the final authority? Me. Always I. Always me.
Yeah, but here in this room, I think you are the
Another illusion.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, because, this is you who pronounced me the highest authority. And I think that I should find myself.
Well, you are it, but you're choosing in this particular context to allow me to be. Thank you. I appreciate that. But when we walk out of here, and I'm not in your life, you remember you are. So actually what you're saying is a very important part of Zen practice. And that in Zen, it is to realize that oneself, I am the final authority. But still, when I'm with my teacher, before he died, he's passed away in 95. When I was with my teacher, even though I knew I was the final authority, I always basically appreciated and respected him as my teacher and gave him that right and that authority. If he had an opinion about something, I would listen. I didn't always do it, but I would really take it in because I always respected that he was still my teacher and the authority, but I knew I was the final authority. We have a saying in Zen, don't put another head on top of your shoulders. You already got one. If you put another one, you become a freak. But we do that, we consciously choose to do that in the process as a student. I did that for 24 years. And for the first 14, before I found for sure that I was the final authority, it took me until from 72 to 86 to discover that. I still relinquished to him when I was in his presence until he passed away in 95. But knowing that when I was away from him, I'm the final authority. Any other dialogue, questions, or anything that you want to bring up? This is a good opportunity for you to ask questions.
How do you get there?
Well, one way is just what we did. call out every day, like Swigan did, and say, Master, are you in? And then you yourself answer. So you make that shift. Now, part of this process, what Big Mind is so great about, is it teaches us how to shift perspectives so readily. Like, you know that in this room right now, there is many perspectives as there are people. And all our perspectives are slightly different. My perspective of this room is very different than your perspective of this room. And even somebody sitting next to you, your perspective is different than theirs slightly. So there's no one right perspective, or you could say every perspective is right. Every view in this room is the right view, but no one view is the complete view. All views are essentially incomplete, although they're perfect as they are. And this is really reality. Reality, we are perfect as we are, and yet we're incomplete. We're imperfect. And in Zen, we realize our true nature is perfect, complete, and whole, and then we work on ourself to refine ourself and to work on the places where the self is still very attached to different ideas, different notions, different, you could say, attachments or karma, and we work on these things. Like, very often, we all are trying to do a great job in helping and save the world, the planet, and others, and we're rescuers, but we don't always realize how much we come from a place of feeling victimized, and that we are also very often manifesting the victim, because in reality we are fairly powerless. And until we are willing to own that we are powerless, we can't truly find our power, because all the power that we attain to and achieve is meaningless in the bigger picture, because in the end we're like bugs. We can be stepped on at any time, we can be annihilated. We have to realize that we're all mortal and we're all fragile and we're very vulnerable. And so we can all be hurt. But the true self can never be lost. The true self, which is our Buddha nature, we call it, is always present, and that has no form and no fixed way of being. And so that's completely free. We also very often don't see how we are harming others, how we are affecting others, even unconsciously or maybe in some ways covertly, and come out as perpetrators. So when we can really own that we are both completely innocent on one hand and not innocent on the other, innocent in one way and not innocent in another way, we can own the places that we are guilty, where we have and do harm, and we do harm to others, very often unconsciously, as I said. But we identify very much as the rescuers, the savior, and that's why we get into helping professions, and we become therapists, and we become Zen teachers, and so on, because we want to help others. But we need to work on the whole self. So in Zen, we come from a place where all perfect, complete, and whole as we are, and yet we're imperfect, and we work on our imperfections. Does this raise any other questions?
So are there imperfections in the small self?
Yes. Yes. Not in the true self. The true self is absolutely perfect as it is, because it's not a form. It's not manifested. It manifests as the small self or the contracted self. Yes?
You said about monk, how he could feel master, but he had a big mountain and a wonderful view, you said. And how we can feel the same, so short, but in our life, our casual life, when we don't have the mountain.
I think you have plenty of mountains here in Poland. Where my grandparents were from and my father was from was plenty of mountains. And in fact, my grandfather was a logger, cut trees down and so forth. So I think you got mountains. But not in jest, but in truth, we have to be able to do this wherever we are, in the middle of Warsaw or any other city. We have to and can call ourselves up. He just knew that it was also good for him to get some exercise, which most of us know is good, and we don't do it anyways. So every day he climbed or ran up the mountain for some exercise. And then to be alone, because he didn't want to appear like crazy, he called out to himself. If he did it down in the monastery, they'd think he was insane. Do you want to have some fun? Can I speak to the one who is completely insane? May I speak to that one, but disowned? You know, it's not owned yet. Can I speak to the one who's completely insane? Are you? Who are you? Completely insane. Okay, why is it the self has you disowned?
Because I am insane and I am insane every day. So sorry.
Oh, so he doesn't have you disowned?
No.
Okay, very good.
This is my true self.
Okay, this is the true self. Yeah, but I asked to speak to the one that was disowned, so that's okay.
Sorry, he's loud, so it's hard to...
No, you are. Why is it the self has most of you disowned? Is there fear, or what is it? Because can't control you. Exactly. Anybody else? Is there any fear? If I wanted to ask for you to own this voice?
Yes.
Okay, let me speak to fear for a moment. Okay, so you fear. And do you have fear about owning insanity? It's bringing a lot up, huh? We don't have to go there, at least in this situation. Anybody willing to allow me to speak to the one who's completely insane, owned, embodied, and empowered to be insane? Would you take the risk? Those who are willing to take the risk, and I guarantee you it'll be fun. It's the freest voice of all. It's the most creative and the most intelligent, frankly. Let me speak, just those who want to complete insanity, owned, embodied, and empowered to be completely insane. You are. Completely insane, owned, embodied, and empowered. And just feel what that's like. To be completely insane. What's it like?
Quite limitless.
Quite limitless, that's right.
Freedom.
Great freedom.
I think the kind of limit in this subject is the place.
I agree.
A very important,
Right.
in my opinion,
Yeah.
is something like big mountain. It I doesn't mind. Okay, I love mountains as well, but it might be over the sea, on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
in the forest,
Okay.
somewhere where you are very closely with the nature.
Or nature. I think that's very true. So next time you're in any of those situations, ask to speak to the one who's completely insane. I just spent 2 months on the beach in Hawaii, so I love the beach. I lived in the mountains, and I like to be near the water. I had a little cabin right on the river, up, 8,000 feet. I don't know how many meters that is, but quite a bit. Anybody else, as the one who's completely insane, what's it like for you to be and know you're completely insane?
Everything's possible.
Everything's possible, absolutely. That's why I say it's the most creative and maybe the most intelligent of all voices. Complete insanity. What's that?
There's nothing to worry about.
That's right. There's nothing to fear or worry about. That's right. You've already gone insane. What else is there to worry about? Anybody else? There's no responsibility. Complete freedom. Can you imagine taking a little time every day from your busy working lives and asking to speak to this voice in your chair in your office or someplace in a closet or toilet, and just be completely relaxed and be completely insane for a little while? The real truth why we're so afraid of this voice is, as the man said, the lack of control. But if you know that you can speak to this voice and then change out of it, and you're in complete control as the final authority, as the master, it's not so frightening. I go in and out of this voice constantly. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Any last thing that you have that you want to ask about or say or offer?
How much time on a daily basis do you, I know, maybe it's not there, but is required to actually be kind of in this feeling of Zen? Like hours of daily practice?
Well, eventually it's just 24/7. But I'll tell you, I think that's an excellent question. What I have done, I've been doing this a long time, and I used to sit formally with my group, my community, and we would sit many hours a day, in fact, sometimes even up to 10 hours a day. What I do now is I don't require a lot of sleep, and I haven't for 45 years. So I sleep about 4 hours, 3-4 hours, maybe 5 hours at night. And the rest of the night, while everybody else in the world's asleep, I meditate. But I meditate very comfortably these days. I don't do it in a full lotus like I used to on a cushion. Now I sit in a chair, very much like this, and I just relax completely. I just put my hands either in what we call the universal or cosmic mudra, or I just put it like this. And I just sit there, and I make no preference between being awake and asleep, or aware or unaware, attentive or inattentive, concentrated or not. I have no preference or judgment of how the sitting is going. I just relax and sit. And I take 10 deep breaths, the first 10 out the mouth and then in through the nose, very deep, very slow, and then I just breathe naturally. And I just become more and more relaxed. And there's a fine line between awake and asleep, conscious or unconscious, even alive or dead. Sometimes the time just passes by and it's 2-3 hours and I'm sitting there. And if I fall asleep, that's great because I make up for the sleep I don't. And if I don't fall asleep, I'm very attentive and very relaxed and aware, so it also makes up for the lack of sleep. So that's what I do. And usually we say if you could sit 30 minutes to an hour a day, meditate, but meditation is not something to do. It's actually a state of being. And so why I like to do it at night is there's no need for me to look good or focused or aware or concentrate. And when you sit in a group, everybody's looking like they're awake and enlightened or something like that. And at night, I can look really bad and not care. Anything else? Any other questions?
Or I understand you correct, this style of life,
Yes.
whole day
Oh no, I don't think about anything. No, I don't close my eyes all day. Only, no, free. It's all about freedom. Freedom not to think about it. Freedom to have eyes open or shut. You know, freedom to be present. So what happens is the more you sit and be in that awakened state of consciousness, the more you're present at every moment, but it's effortless. Just like when we were in these voices, they're effortless. When we make effort to achieve or to get someplace, that's when it falls apart. It's the efforting that's not so good. If we can be more effortless in our activities, that's more Zen. Non-doing in our doing, we'd call it. Very good question. Somebody else had simultaneously had something. Well, relationships. I learned that the hard way. No one wants to be really in a relationship where either you're just insane all the time or kind of enlightened all the time. Because there's no self there for contact. So I spent a little bit of time, 40 years, in kind of that state. And the last 5.5 years, I've been cultivating the self again, the personal self, the relational, so that I can make a better partner, a better, yeah.
How many different voices have you recognized?
About 10,000.
What are your favorite ones?
Complete insanity, the one who's innocent, what else? Pride. Yeah, because you know, like I'll show you, it's really tricky. But if I was to speak to pride right now, you'd all have a lot to say, right? But the moment I say, let me speak to your opposite, and this is very important, whatever voice we own, we need to own its opposite. So if, let's say I'm speaking as pride, yeah, I have a lot of pride, I'm proud of my children, I'm proud of my accomplishments, I'm proud of this and that. Okay, now let me speak to its opposite, the opposite of pride, but disown. And you go, huh? You can't find it. Because it doesn't exist. It's all pride. And that's why you get like, the opposite of pride. And I'm disowned? I mean, I don't have a clue who I am. So then to begin to look at that, how much of our life is about coming from pride and being right and being correct and being, you know, always right. Even in our relationships, we can't stand to be wrong. We'd rather be unhappy or even dead than be wrong. It's true. We want desperately always to be right. And you men, you know the secret. The way you always can get the last word is, yes, dear, you're right. You stay alive that way. I learned that around relationships. Yes, dear, you're right. Always. Anybody else? I feel this is the best part of the program, is this interchange. But I need you to ask some things.
Okay, maybe the last question. Actually, when you meditate,
Mm-hmm.
when you're like present, not present, or all of these opposites, trying to think about these exercises?
No, I don't try to do anything. But sometimes I do think about an exercise. I'll do a voice. Like about 3 years ago, I decided, I was sitting there and I decided to look into the one who's innocent. Because I've never felt I was innocent. But I always come out pleading I'm innocent in my relationships. Oh, I didn't do that, I'm innocent, you know. You must relate to that. No? Okay. So I decided to look in and I discovered that the voice of innocent is was very disowned in me from very early on. I mean, I was guilty at birth. almost killed my mother. It was a 72-hour labor. She almost died. She was in hospital for 49 days after I was born. I mean, I was guilty right from the beginning. I wouldn't come out. I almost killed my mom. So once I owned the voice of the one who's innocent, it was really amazing because it brought me all the way back to a state of innocence. But then I was able to see that the self is not so innocent, that the self is quite guilty of a lot. And it allowed me to begin to own my guilt, which is not easy to own, frankly. You know, because we do a lot of things that are harmful that we just choose not to look at. So then I was able to flip over, okay, let me speak to the one who's not innocent, the opposite of innocent, the one who's not innocent. And then that was very disowned, and then bring that to ownership. And that allowed me to take responsibility for my life. And balancing it with the one who's innocent. So there's one who's innocent, there's a voice or an aspect of the self that's completely innocent, but there's another one who's not innocent at all, that's quite guilty. And then come to the apex and embrace both the one who's innocent and not so innocent. And then from there, we can see our life. And how we see how we so easily fall into the drama triangle, victim, perpetrator, rescuer. And we start to see, or at least I started to see, how we're all living our lives in this drama, constantly feeling victimized, coming out as a victim, or perpetrating, and the victim invites the perpetration, you know? And so we become perpetrators and victims back and forth, always trying to rescue the situation, rescue ourselves, save ourselves by pleading our innocence or trying to make things right and better. So for me, the final koan of Zen, I think, is a very Western koan. It's the drama triangle. And I have a book that I just wrote. In fact, it only came finalized 2 days ago. It's called Spitting Out the Bones, and it's my 45-year journey in this practice, 45 years now of this Zen practice. And the book will come out in hardback and paperback not until probably August or September, but there's the e-version, the email version is available now. And in this book, I talk about the importance of taking responsibility for all these voices, that the drama triangle is from drama to dharma triangle. The dharma triangle being what we've been working on. And how do we make that transition, and how do we transmute the drama to dharma? And we take the victim is a victim because it's powerless. So how do we own the fact that we are powerless? That we are all powerless, really. In the bigger picture, we're powerless. We can be stomped out. How do we own the perpetrator? Because when we own the perpetrator, we find our own protector. The perpetrator is really just trying to protect the self. But it's doing it from a very immature place. We find it in a more mature place, like a guardian. And then the rescuer, when that's disowned, it comes out in very immature and unhealthy ways. But when it's owned, we call it in Zen, we call it the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is the one who wants to share with everybody the awakening, to wake up to our natural state of awareness. So the book's about a lot about this. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'd like to ask about how do you handle challenging situations, for example, difficult conversation. Because let's say it's quite easy to be effortless when you're alone in your room with your own self, with your own thoughts, when you're alone communicating with others.
Yeah. Well, you know, that is the most difficult. And that's what I'm saying about start to become conscious and aware of these three aspects. How we come from the victim, how we end up being aggressive and perpetrating either covertly or overtly, and how we're coming in and being the rescuer. It's all about awareness and the ability, as you said, the ability to shift, to move through these things. a lot of it is stepping back or stepping out and not being so identified with ourself. Because when we're identified with the self, we make the self too concrete. And then everything bothers us. Everything is very disturbing because we feel upset or mistreated or, you know, victimized by stuff that we're not really victims of. And so if we can step back and see, as one lady said earlier, the illusion of the self, that of course it's an illusion. Of course some illusions hurt more than others. You know, there's an old Zen master who said his mother died and he was crying and his students came to him and said, "You're a Zen master and you say it's all illusion. Why are you crying?" He said, "Well, yeah, I'm crying because some illusions hurt more than others. My mother's death, that illusion hurts." So, but to see that it is an illusion and yet, in a way, it's all very real in our lives and very important. So to have that kind of perspective helps in the relationships. But relationships are really the most difficult most difficult aspect of our lives, all of our lives. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of patience. Thank you.
Can we be masters and at the same time achieve a lot in the real world?
Absolutely. And not achieve a lot in the real world. I don't think it has... Being your own master is just who you are. I mean, that's just a fact. You are your own master. Of course, nobody else can live your life for you. You're the captain of your ship. You know, you're the conductor of your orchestra. You're the leader of your life, the CEO of your life. So of course you're the master. And you can either be very successful or not. One of the things that I've discovered is we all have this tremendous fear of failure, but we also have a tremendous fear of success. And to find out that we all have saboteur in us. We have the one who wants to be successful, but we also have the saboteur. And what I've discovered recently is, of course there's a voice called the saboteur, but that saboteur is all the voices that are still coming out in a disowned, unhealthy way. So when a voice is not owned and embodied and empowered, it comes out covertly and it's a saboteur. It sabotages our own success. We get just to that place where we're successful and then we fail. But I also found that it's very important to not only become successful, but it's also very important as a human being to fail and to see the beauty and the wisdom of failure. Failure is a very important part. In Zen, we say we must ascend the mountain, then at the top of the mountain own the master, but then we have to come back down off the mountain. And sometimes we can do that in a very graceful way. Myself, I seem to always do it in a not so graceful way, more like falling. But we have to come back down because it's down here where we can do something for the world. That's where everybody is. There's very few up on top of the mountain. In fact, there's only one at a time. It's like K2. You can only have one up there at a time. Okay, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.